Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to SABR Day. I'm Rich Hansen, president of the Nieckula chapter here in Chicago. If you've been members for a while, you know they've had SABR Day for 6 or 7 years now. They encourage all the chapters to have a chapter meeting on the same day, and they have it on their website. It's actually next Saturday, but next Saturday is Sox Fest. There's like 6 chapters are having their meeting this Saturday because of the Team Fest. You know, everybody plans their activity for the week in between, the off week in between the Super Bowl. So it's not surprising it's conflicting with all kinds of things. But this year we moved it up a week. We've done it with the Milwaukee chapter. The last 5 years we had a joint meeting up in Kenosha at the Broad Stop. And some of you have been up there for our meeting. Okay, a few of you at least. And those were very good to keep in touch with the guys from Milwaukee and with Rich Shavowski and everybody up there. They're having their meeting next Saturday. I believe it's at the Broad Stop again. If you want to go up there and get 2 of them. But this year we decided to split them apart, do ours down here so we don't conflict. And for people who don't have cars or whatever, that was just be a little easier commute for some people to get here. As we had announced, we met earlier in Illuminati's right across the street, and there were 8 of us over there, and 6 of them have not found their way back. Drinking or what? But we wanted to get moving. We have the room here until 4:30. So I want to thank the Nieckula Library for making these arrangements. As you can tell, it's been rebuilt. This library's been here a while, but you can see all around there's been a major renovation that's just been completed. So this is a nice room with nice visual facilities, plenty of space. We have on the table over here, if you haven't seen it, we have a silent auction that we've done every year at these meetings. Primarily Dave Melman has been emptying his basement and brought stuff over here, but lots of good things. Please take advantage, and he does not want to take any of them home. So please make your bids, and the money goes to the chapter to help pay for the room and this kind of thing. We obviously don't charge admission to our meetings, and they are open to the public. So that's what our plans are for today. All right. Lou Malnati's is kick them out here. Good pizza. Good pizza. So we have three presenters today. The program was in the email here now. Starting out with Aaron, who used to be with King County and has been with Oakland for several years now. Josh Nelson from the Sox Machine, and Dave Moran from the White Sox scoreboard crew. He tells me he's never actually been inside the scoreboard. They don't do that in Michigan Park. And the Sox Nerd Block. So then we have the auction. We have a trivia quiz. Dave Zeman, our trivia quiz extraordinaire, is not able to make it. He has a retail job now. He can't consider he's off. But he did contribute not a long one, not too torturous. So we'll get that in. And some hot stove league talk. There's plenty going on in the trade market. The Hall of Fame vote coming out next week. Convention in Pittsburgh this year. So we'll get into plans for the year. And we're filling up. Very good. Peter's not here yet. Do we have, Rich, do we have name tags anywhere? All right, but you're going to pass around the sign-up sheet?
I'm going to send her out and sign it list, and people can just put name and whatever contact info you do or don't want to give would be appreciated. I can send a pen around too.
And we're doing something new. Our technology social media extraordinaire, Dave Melnick at the back table, who's also one of the arranged speakers for today. I want to thank him. As usual, he's recording our presentation. It'll go up on his website. And we live on Facebook?
Yeah.
We are live. Wow. How about that?
I don't know how, but we are.
One way or the other, so we're trying something new. I also, I do have two guests. I did my part to recruit over here, Jim and Linda, my girlfriend, and neither of them know, one knows less than the other knows even less about baseball, but they know it's important to me, wanted to check it out, and they've heard me say that there really are other geeks out here that didn't believe me, but I'll show you now. Today, and I've met a few of you, and I know I have great competition for that, and so we'll have a great afternoon. So we'll start out our first presentation. Aaron Nieckula serves as minor league field coordinator for the Oakland A's and manages the Vermont Lake Monsters. What a great name! Which is the athletics affiliate in the New York Penn League. And Aaron is former manager of the Cougars. Aaron.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Dave. I know Dave and I have been trying to get myself honored for the last half a dozen years or so. There's always been some kind of conflict or prior obligation on my part, so I want to make sure that I want to get out and thank Dave for this opportunity. I also want to thank my PowerPoint coach who's out there watching on Facebook. I want to say hi to all my Facebook friends and my two new little friends out in Roscoe Village. So hope you enjoy the presentation. Like Rich said, I'm going to be talking about player and coach development, inside the athletics farm system. A lot of information to cover, so I kind of condensed it down to what I thought were the most pertinent points that you guys and girls would find interesting. If there's any questions along the way, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, I will leave some time at the end for a short Q&A. So today's objectives. We're talking about the roles and responsibilities of a field coordinator and what a field manager does. We'll have a brief little background of the Lou Wolf Training Center in the Ho-Ho Camp out in Mesa, Arizona. We'll talk about our leadership development program. It was actually started by my boss, Keith Littman, who's the director of player development. He's been around for 26 years as farm director, 45 years with the A's. Some of you may know the name. He won the Chief Bender Award for excellent service in both player development and scouting. And then methods of player development and coaching, kind of how we coach, how we train, how we develop our athletes at pretty much every level, from our Dominican Summer League, which we have 2, all the way up to AAA Nashville. And like I said, at the end we'll have a Q&A. Here we go. Obviously our main objective is championship baseball, to bring the trophy back to Oakland. Talk about a winning product on the field. Bean is our vice president. David Force is now our general manager. I can't say for sure, but it seems like there's maybe a little bit of a shift in our paradigm on how we're going to build a championship culture and a team in Oakland. Years prior, we've traded away a lot of our pieces, a lot of our top talent. Players like Addison Russell. We traded for the Cubs, and we got pieces back. I think now we're transitioning into more of a homegrown mentality, homegrown philosophy, where our scouting department does such an excellent job in bringing in talent from the amateur ranks into the organization, into our farm system. And we develop these guys and see them traded away. It's a little bit demoralizing because we'd like to see the players break into the big leagues in their green and gold with the team that they were drafted by. And And obviously, those of us that put in all the hard work, we'd like to see them break into the A's. So there's a little bit of a shift. I think you'll see a lot more familiar names that come through the minor leagues and the A's crack the big leagues in the coming years. So to start off, I got my own little trivia game here. And I think David said he's going to have an all-expenses-paid trip out to spring training. First class ticket, by the way.
You're paying.
It's going to give you an IOU. Can anybody name the last time the A's won a World Series?
89.
89? Bingo. One ticket for you. Last A's player to win the AL MVP and then the AL Cy Young.
Tejada?
Tejada? And what about Cy Young?
Cy Young, Barry Zito.
Barry Zito. Got him. How many games did the A's win on their record-breaking winning streak in 2002? This is the era of Moneyball, by the way. This is 20. Final answer?
21.
Want to phone a friend? 20. Did the Indians strike that this year?
Yes, yeah.
20.
3?
Two, I think it was
22? I had 22 up there. I had to go back and check my facts. 22. Anybody know the history of the elephant?
John McGraw called him that. They said they'd never make it.
They said they never made it. John McGraw versus Connie Mack. I've got a little hyperlink there that I'll click on real quick to show you. It's kind of neat. It comes up. Are we connected to the internet, Dave, on the computer?
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, perfect, perfect. So there it is, yeah. New York's manager, John McGraw, dismissed the A's with contempt, calling them the White Elephants. Mack finally adopted the White Elephant as a team insignia in 1902 when the A's won the American League pennant, and the rest is history. Stuck with it the rest of the way. Interesting little factoid there. Down. It's about a third of the players. Anybody know what the extended spring training is for, comparative to what regular spring training is? The extended program.
Injuries?
Yeah, a lot of injuries, rehab. The extended program, maybe for players that didn't break with the club, maybe short season players. Yep, short season players. So it's kind of just an extended spring training that usually runs from about mid-April or so all the way to about the first week of June. So you're looking at about a 2-month program. Games are at 10 o'clock. We're off the field by 1:30. We come in for lunch, and then it's a normal day. We're home by 3:30, 4 o'clock. Heavily Latin dominated down here too. So probably 80% to 85% Latin players. So all the Latin players that didn't come over from the Dominican Republic for regular spring training will be flown in for the extended program. And then obviously they have 2 months of extended and they get into their summer league.
How many players do you have at that?
At the extended?
Yeah.
Not counting rehab players, roughly 25 to 30. So enough to field 2 teams, but like a team and a half. Now what we'll do on a typical day is we'll have 15 players slotted to play the game, whether it's at home or on the road, and the remaining players will stay back after the workout, and instead of going to the game, they'll do some extra work on the field, a curveball machine or defensive work, base running work, maybe a little extra work in the classroom with our sports psychiatrist. They'll get their lift in, and then they get to go home for the day. So it's a little bit of a relaxed schedule, but they're still getting work done. And then on the next day, it'll flip. The players that didn't play in the game will play in the game, and those that did will come and do their skill work. Then we move on to fall instructional league. Same thing, dial down, there's probably maybe 55 to 60 players here. It's kind of like the extended program, but obviously a lot more centered on the prospects of the organization and the meat and potatoes, a lot of instruction on how to play the A's way. A majority of these players that come to the Fall Instructional League are invited. They're fresh out of the draft or they're young Latin players. And we just go through a typical day. Schedule review, active warm-up. We're starting to get big into yoga. And we had hit and infield, gold and green teams. We had 2 teams. We did some base running drills, which is ball and dirt reads. We have a base BP rotation. We broke them up into pods, which I'll explain later. This is kind of based off the Navy SEAL theme or the military theme. our BP routine, and then we had our pod challenge. We had a pod challenge every day, which is really cool. Really a lot of buy-in. The players really had a good time with it. And then we had the pitcher schedule on the other side. Pod 2, pod 3, and then pod 1. A typical day down in the instructional league. We move on. We'll talk about our leadership development program, which has been in place ever since I started coaching in 2004, so about 13 or 14 years. I have been charged to lead that. My boss has been doing that for a number of years. Got a phone call a few weeks ago saying he'd like me to take that over, so we're really excited to help that program excel and grow moving forward. And then assist the farm director with staff and player evaluations. That's pretty much on a daily basis. So as a manager, manage the day-to-day operations of the team, of the Vermont Lake Monsters and the New York Penn League. Typical schedule, a little different with the Lake Monsters. So this is competition Saturday. Every Saturday we have a competition. We break it down and it will change every week. And this is typical schedule. We're out there with early work, bunting, early work hitting. Break them up into two groups, left-handed curveball, right-handed curveball. And we go through our schedule. Our game schedule review for the night before. 10 or 15 minutes of review, what we did well, what we didn't do so well, pros and cons, what we can do better. We'll stretch, condition, and throw. We got our conditioning on bases today. Team fundamentals, 2-out, 2-strike release, a low line drive, so that was base running fundamentals. And VP was competition between the two teams. And then the pitcher schedule, more of the same. Team notes, always got little team notes, try to keep it positive, even if we didn't play so well, I always try to pick out a positive and make sure that they can be positive reinforcement. And then shift review, we'd always got shift review. With the way the game is going today, and the amount of data that we have in terms of defensive shifts, we would put some power shifts on, and they actually worked very well. Shift day Sunday was our day to work with the shift. A lot of players that come into the organization are not familiar with the rotations of where to be, number one. Number two, where to go, where to move when the ball's put in play. Now, it's one thing to be in your regular defensive set and then go for a setup for a cutoff or relay. But once you're thrown out of position, like if you're the third baseman, you're shifting over on the power side, now you're out to short right field. That same ball, you would have went somewhere, say point X down the left field line, you're going somewhere totally different. So every Sunday, we would have shift day Sunday for about a half hour and throw them out there. So you got a little bit more familiar with it. It was more of a true baseball game instead of a circus. And then, Monday and Tuesday, it's always 4 days, 4 or 5 days in advance we have to set up. This is something, I'd also email the schedule to the players, make sure that we're all on the same page. There's no confusion. Give them my cell number, give them my email, making sure that we're all on the same page. Everybody's there on time doing the same thing. Scouting, evaluating, coaching team players. Anybody who's a prospect or above are required to write up a report. It goes into what's called our Oasis program, which is a cloud-based server. And so you can access it almost immediately. If we have a scout or Billy Bean's traveling all the way and say overseas, he can just pop on his computer, go in and look at the reports.
What level is the New York Penn League?
New York Penn League is short A. That's short A. And then coach and mentor our coaching staff, which is a big one for me, especially the younger coaches that are maybe 1 or 2 years into the game. A Lou Wolf Training Center, Ho-Ho Cam. A couple of facts and I'll take you over to it. It was the Cubs Old Minor League Complex and Spring Training Ballpark until the Cubs built their new one over in Mesa, which is literally like 7 minutes down the road from where we're at. So we moved over from Poplarville Park, which was in Phoenix, and then Phoenix Muni, which was in Tempe, to Ho-Ho Cam. It opened up in 2015, so this is our 4th year. 2015 was my first year as field coordinator, so you can imagine first year as a field coordinator, not exactly having a lot of experience, going into a new ballpark or a new facility, not knowing how the logistics were going to work. So there was a lot of on-the-job training, to say the least. And I think it was approximately $25 million they put in to Fitch Park, the minor league side, and then Ho-Ho Cam, the big league side. It's absolutely beautiful. And we'll take you there right now so you guys get a sense of what it looks like. So this is the main entrance. You're looking westward right now, going into the facility. A little closer look, it's Webster Garrison, manager in Beloit this year. So those who want to see a Beloit Snappers game, will be the manager. That's got the main hallway. That's looking southbound. One of our classrooms, kind of a half look. On the right-hand side, above the jerseys, and on the other side of the jerseys are all the trophies and rings that have been won throughout the years, whether at the Major League level or at the minor league level. This is looking southward again from our agility field. This is our weight room. That weight room is probably about 6 times the size of the one we had at Poplar Park. It's an amazing weight room. It's an amazing facility. There's a lot of work done in there. A nice agility field. Right behind the agility field where we're at here is a half field. So basically you have an infield and maybe about 15 feet of outfield work. So a lot of bunting drills, base running drills are done there. Catchers work. This is Ho-Ho Cam, upgraded. Boy, the weather looks nice, doesn't it? 75. Then here's our minor league complex. This is looking, I think this is looking northeast, if I'm not mistaken. So there's 4 basic fields. That was kind of tough to see. No, this is looking south. This is looking southeast. This is the Mason 911 building. This is the complex here. So basically you have field 1 is back here, field 2, field 3, and field 4. These 2 fields are our game fields. And then we use all 4 for practice, but this is double A field, triple A field, low A field, high A field. So that's the minor league complex. 4 fields to work with and 2 half fields. So our leadership development program, obviously it's train and educate all players and staff on leadership principles. We don't believe in status quo. We believe in always trying to get better as a teacher, as an educator, as a communicator, as a coach. Personal leadership model. This by far is probably my most favoritist, that's a word, favoritist exercise I've done as a young coach. And I got an example of it on here for you. It's based off the book Touch Points. Our basic premise of the leadership model is just to create something that is your leadership, something that you model. And so I came up with the idea of a baseball field. And some of the words that were important to me: conflict resolution, accountability, being on time, staying strong up the middle with preparation, communication, having teamwork, being a good teammate. You know, DH was my faith in my family and having a strong work ethic. And of course, education, passion, enthusiasm on the side. And then on the bench, my bench players need some work, right? They can't get into the game, so I need to work on my patience, my emotions, and my body language, which to this day I probably still do, but it's getting better. And then down the left-hand side, you have winning and player development. You know, I had in there winning versus player development because at the minor league level, you're not so concerned about winning games per se. The major league team is. At the minor league level, you're more concerned about player development, getting the players ready to win at the major league level. But I changed it to winning and player development because for me, they're kind of synonymous. They go hand in hand. If you develop players, they learn how to win at the minor league level, then they're going to bring that intangible up to the major league level because they've already won throughout their minor league career. They already kind of have that ingredient, that 6th ingredient, so to speak, to help the major league team win. So all coaches were required to create a leadership model, give them an idea of how they're leading the players. We do a book and article study, guest lectures, physical strength, psychological and mental skills improvement, and then community service, which is a big one. We actually have a community service award for those that sign up for clinics or book reading at the library or player appearances throughout the season. Huge part of their development. And obviously we track progress and we collect data. So for example, obviously we're collecting data all the time. For sake of time, I just chose one to give you an idea of how we track our base runners. We came up with what's called a base running box score. I know the names are kind of tough to read, and so are the fundamentals up top. We came up, I think there's 15, what we felt were some of the most important base running fundamentals that are going to help you create runs. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, runs created. And obviously runs prevented if you're a defensive pitcher. And so when you get on base, you have to know how to be a smart, yet aggressive base runner. So preaching a hard 90, being aggressive first to third. The Angels were really good at that, so we kind of stole that from them. Going home to second, on a back end first to third. So if the lead runner goes first to third, we want that trail runner to go into second base. It creates more of a run scores opportunity, gets us out of a double play. Hustle double, that marginal double that doesn't necessarily get to the wall. That's kind of the outfielder cuts it off into bang bang play. He wants to get to second base. Stolen base, back end stolen base, a ball and dirt read. Basically, catcher goes down and block it. You want to take advantage of the defensive miscue. We're going to mirror the lead runner. So whatever the lead runner does, we want to do on the back end. 7 ways is basically 7 ways to get to third base from second base on a ball hitting the infield. You guys want to know those?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, 7 ways. So if you're at second base, we always tell them to check the outfielders, right? You check your outfielders, check what they're playing, check the infielders, specifically the shortstop and the second baseman. Okay, so from the left side of the infield working right, one way to get to third base is on a ball, deep ball down the line backhand that takes the third baseman towards the line and deep. If you can read that off the bat initially as a base runner and be aggressive, you're at third base standing up because he's going to go deep. And if he tries to get you, you're there. If he tries to get you, doesn't make the throw, he's safe. So it creates a little bit of confusion at defensive end. Staying with the third baseman is a slow roller in. Any ball that brings that third baseman in past the baseline, as a runner at second, you can release the third base. Either that, or if you don't release initially, you stay out into the base path, let him make the throw, then you may be able to go to third base if you're an aggressive base runner, if you have some speed, if you get a good read, but the situation will dictate whether or not you want to be aggressive. We always talk about the inning score and the outs will dictate how aggressive we can be on the bases. We're not going to go for up 12. We're not going to go for up 12. But if it's marginal gray area, then we may make that a 10. The last one from the third baseman is the ground ball to his left, glove side. Brings him this way. You can walk right into third base to his left base. Move to the shortstop, and this is important. This is why we tell the runner at second base, you have to know where that shortstop is. The first one is the shortstop's right. It's that backhand, deep 6. But there's a key component to that. You guys know what it is? The third baseman has to vacate. The third baseman has to go after that play as well. So a lot of times you'll see a good savvy shortstop whistle over to his amigo over there at third base, hey, any backhand, I'm coming to you. So that third baseman knows, okay, if that ball's hit to the deep 6, I'm going to retreat, go to my base to cover the back, prevent this guy from getting to third base. So as a base runner, you see that, you see him release, this guy go, you walk right in because that third base is vacant. Second is the ball that's hit slow roller to the shortstop, brings him in, you can go. And the last one to the shortstop is to his left. Any ball to his left, you can release the third base. Unless the shortstop is pinched up the middle, maybe it's a power left-handed hitter, that shortstop's pinched up the middle. So that ball that normally you would go on, if we talk about over the left shoulder, if the ball is over your left shoulder, you can release the third, unless the shortstop is playing off your left shoulder up the middle, because that same ball, he's going to turn and throw it third base. So you have to know the position of the shortstop. And then lastly is the ball to the right side. Ball to the right side. So that's the second way. And this is important too, because if you can get to third base with less than 2 outs in a closed ball game, a lot of times, you know, if you're within a run, or if it's tied, what does defense have to do? They have to shift. They have to come into what's called a 4 depth. And now you're creating all kind of havoc out there, because to be 90 to 120 feet away from a professional hitter, and those balls coming off to the bat, we talk about exit velo, the average exit velo at major league level is like 92, somewhere in that range. Somewhere around there, give or take a mile an hour. That's pretty hard. So that infield comes in, we always say hit defense tight, hitters tight. But now you're going to get that run in with the fly ball to the outfield. Now you're going to get that run in a high chopper. Now you're going to get that run in a little blooper. Now you're going to get that run in on a hard hit ball that may normally have been fielded by a defense that's in a 2 or 3, 2 or 1. Now the ball gets by, you get the RBI, and you get a runner on base, so you're creating more runs. Basically, all of this helps create runs just a good read, a good general read, being a good aggressive base runner, smart base runner. Double tag. Just say we got a first and third situation. If the runner at third tags, we want the runner at first to tag. And then that way this guy scores, or maybe the guy at first, or the base runner at first, goes into second base, takes us out of a double play, and also gets another runner in the scoring position. Don't get tagged. Don't get tagged. Another first and third situation. Ball hit to the second baseman. We don't want that second baseman to come in, field the ball, tag the runner, and then make the throw to first base to end the inning. Now that run doesn't score. So if this is really important. This is really important with one out. We'll have a sign, hey, don't get tagged from the third base coach. Don't get tagged on a slow roller to the second baseman. Stop and retreat. Let him throw the ball to second for the first for the second out. And now, as a base runner, you're caught in between. You're caught in the pivot, and that run scores. You may get tagged out, but if this guy scored before you get tagged, that's a run created. Unfortunately, it's not an RBI. I asked the official score. I don't think it's an RBI. It just counts as a run scored. So it's being smart. Don't get tagged in that slow roller. You see a lot of players running to the tag, out, inning over. You lose the game by a run. Low line drive. We don't want to get doubled off. Go to second base and a high throw home. You know, maybe we're trying to get the runner at home, going to second, and just taking the extra base on the defense. Taking the extra base on the defense. So that's what we call the base running box score. We chart it throughout instructionally. We carry it over to the regular season, and we just point it up. Whoever gets the most points based on opportunities wins a prize. It's cash value. These guys love cash value, so you got to kind of bribe them in a way, perform. But that's the way it is at the big league level. Right? You get bonuses for Gold Glove, you get bonuses for innings pitched for wins, bonuses for making the All-Star team. It's all based on performance, as it should be. A little screw up on my PowerPoint here. PowerPoint coach must have not thought that, so I'm going to throw her under the bus. Buck stops here. So there's 4 basic vehicles to accomplish our goals in development. Spring training, practicing games. This isn't necessarily a time to get better. It's a time to get ready for the season. Not to get ready for spring training. We tell these guys, don't come into spring training to get in shape. You should be in shape once you step foot on the diamond, especially the players that are up north, where they can't get outside as much as the players down south or in the Dominican, where you can get outside 365 days a year. So they can get ready, practicing games. They got about, if you're a mini camper, which runs for about 2 or 3 weeks, runs congruent with Major League Camp, you have about 3 weeks before games start. If you're a non-mini camper and you come in regular spring training, you have about 2 days, maybe 3 days to get ready for games. The games are right away. There's roughly 12 to 13 games. That's it. That's it. And we're building up our pitchers. So when the pitchers break camp, I believe our pitching coordinator wants them at 5 and 75. So 5 innings or 75 pitches, whichever comes first. And that's true for the first couple outings, I believe. 2 or 3 outings, they're at 575, and then they build up after that. I'm going to do all these up. Perfect. Season, 76, 140 games, going back to what level of New York Penn League is. We're at short A season, short A, compared to the long A, is about 76 regular season games. And that starts in mid-June. I think this year we open up June 15th at home, and we end September 5th. 7, somewhere around there. So it's about 2.5 months, 76 games. Great league, by the way, New York Penn League. Anybody's familiar with some great ballparks.
The last 5 years, I've seen 40 games at Burlington.
In Vermont?
Yeah.
Well, if you come this summer, you'll be out there.
I'm here now.
By the way, Burlington, Vermont, where the lake launches are, it's beautiful. It's on Lake Champlain up in Vermont. We have the oldest ballpark, I think, in all of baseball.
Yeah.
Centennial Field.
I did SABR
Up there?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Centennial? Yeah. Great ownership, great leadership, Kyle and Joe and all them, and great people. It's really a great league. We play in Brooklyn. You got Coney Island right there with the big Ferris wheel and the boardwalk. And so we drop guys off, on the boardwalk. Hey, you got an hour and a half to go and do your thing. And then the bus will go back to the hotel, which, by the way, it's a 45-minute bus ride back to the hotel in Brooklyn. Because they can't go on the highway or the byway, so you got to go through neighborhoods. The hotel's maybe like a few miles down the road, maybe 5-6 miles, but it's 40 minutes, so. And then we play Staten Island, which is gorgeous. So if you're standing like at the batter's box, you have the Statue of Liberty right over the wall, and then the Manhattan skyline, really, really nice. The last couple of years, well, actually since I started in 2015. So part of my role as field coordinator is obviously field coordinator and managing. Is I just gave the guys time off. I said, hey, we got a show to go. We have a 6 o'clock game on Sunday. We play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The day before, on Saturday, this is 2 years ago, we went like 14, 15 innings, and we won. So I was happy. Anytime we win, I'm happy. Anytime we lose, not so much. So I said, all right, I'll tell you what, we're gonna have show and go tomorrow. Don't show up to the clubhouse until about 4:30. And so a lot of guys took advantage of the time off. They were tired. They went into Manhattan, to Times Square. Some of them went to lollygag around and just had a nice time. They came back. The ferry's free, and played that night. And then, there's a lot of great ballparks as well. So, and then you go into a regular season, which is Beloit, low A, or Kane County, same level, low A, high A, which our team is in Stockton, California, double A, which I managed for a couple of years, is in Midland, Texas. And we're a little bit earlier with the schedule, but we did something a little different this year. We had a military theme based off Navy SEALs. If you're familiar with the Navy SEALs, they're considered the most elite fighting force in the entire world. And so I was really motivated to implement this into our instructional league program based on a book I read called Extreme Ownership. If anybody's read it, it's written by 2 former Navy SEALs, SEAL Team 6, I believe, which is the most famous SEAL team. And it was an amazing book to talk about extreme ownership and what we do in life and leadership and so on and so forth. So I said, I went to my boss, I went to Ed Sprague, by the way. You guys know Ed Sprague. He's with us as coordinator of instruction. He and I basically built the program, and it was based off these two ideas here. So we just took it's called acronym, right? I think it's called acronym. If you take a letter and make it there. SEALs, S-E-A-L-S. So we came up with strength at the bottom, right? We want to have a strong foundation in stamina, in your mindset, obviously in nutrition and in your condition. And then you go to execution. You got to execute your routines, execute your game plan, be disciplined, and have a tremendous work ethic. We talked about accountability, which was a huge one, self-accountability, and about accountability with each other, hold each other accountable. We always preach that. Every manager, every hitting coach, every pitching coach preaches player accountability. It doesn't always have to come from the staff. The players in the clubhouse should be able to police themselves. Are you trustworthy? Are you on time? And what's your attitude? Leadership of vision, integrity, influence. And what's your style? Each player kind of develops a style over time. What's your style? How are you being perceived? Or how do you want to be perceived? So that was kind of our SEAL pyramid, if you will. And we also had our objectives. What were our uh-oh. Well, I'll get it. It's in here. Maybe it's not. You guys want to see it? You got time? You got time?
Yeah.
It's actually the last.
Thank you.
Any questions so far? Yes, sir.
You mentioned as one of the things for the players to be improving was psychological and mental skills. To improve, you have to have a baseline. What kind of psychological or personality testing do you do with players, either once they start with you or when you're drafting or at any point?
That's an excellent question. So what kind of personality tests do we do? We actually, in terms of what player or scouting does with the players, I'm not exactly sure what they do. I know on our side, we do have a full-time sports psychologist on staff, and we also have an assistant. So a lot of times, we don't do personality tests per se, like a RAS Strengths Finder or a MBTI or a DISC profile. Basically, it's just self-assessments with the personal leadership model It's one-on-one with our sports psychologist, and then just getting to know the players and what makes them tick, what makes them operate. But that's a great question. I wish we did do something like that, kind of like what the NFL does with their players, kind of like a psych eval, to give us an idea of what type of player that's coming into the organization.
Doing that in drafting some.
It's very important. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, players who have come up through the system and the leadership development program and others, and they make it to the major leagues, how do you integrate players coming in from other teams so that this philosophy is continued?
How do we integrate other players?
Players coming in from other teams to the major league team, where the players that have come up through the system and learned all these principles and the leadership program and everything.
That's almost like the proverbial game of cat and mouse that we play. You know, we have players that come in, whether it's via Rule 5, which is basically a team goes in and purchases the contract of a player, and Rule 5 over to the organization, or trade, or maybe a player's released and they come in. So they've already kind of gone through a number of years of training with another organization, so they're learning the game a different way, contrary to the way we teach it. And so a lot of times, obviously, it starts with us as a staff to introduce them to the A's way, but it also, we rely heavily on the players to continue that dialogue and that discussion on how we do things here. Now, some players, and this just goes along with ego and personality, going back to your point, some players are a little bit more rigid, they're a little bit more defensive, they've already got their routines established. They've already been successful doing it a certain way, which we give them some freedom, we give them some empowerment. It's not a dictatorship, it's not our way or the highway. And I think the A's are well known for that, to allow players to experience some freedom with the way they kind of develop and train. So but at the major league level, it's even tougher, because the player's a little bit older, AA, AAA, major league player, they've already kind of set in their ways. It's just more or less observation. They come in and watch the way things are done and how we operate. So, and that's tough at the minor league level, too, to really win on a regular basis. Because you have players, especially the higher you get, you have players that come in from other organizations. I always say there should be a revolving door on a clubhouse, because players are coming in, players are going out, going up, going down, getting released. So you start with a 25-man roster, guaranteed you will not have the same 25 players at the end of the season that you had at the beginning of the season. You'll have transaction after transaction after transaction. I know our AAA team a few years ago had something like 60, 70-something transactions. Guys going up and down, up and down, up and down, from AAA to big leagues, or from AAA down to AA.
Is there that much of a difference you feel between the different teams? You can go from one organization to another, it's really that much of a factor.
Is there a big difference between organizations and different teams? That's a great question. Not necessarily. The game is the game. You know, the bases are 90 feet. The pitching mound is 60 feet 6 inches. Almost like that movie Hoosiers. They go and play in the big game and measuring out the free throw line and the height of the hoop. Everything's the same. It's just maybe the verbiage is a little different. And like, for instance, I'll give you an example. So the Angels, they taught aggressive base running. That was their mantra through the minor leagues. You knew when you went in and played the Cedar Rapids Colonels, which I think they're Minnesota now, if I'm not mistaken. But for a while there, the Colonels were an affiliate of the Angels, and they were going to run the base. They're going to go ball in the dirt every time. Whether they're out or safe, they're going to go. No matter what the score was, they're going to go. Or they're going to go first to third on a ball hit to the outfield, center or right. They're going regardless. Because that's the way Mike Social wanted them to play. They're going to hit and run, up big or down big. And you knew that coming in. That was their style of play. Now, if you take an Angels player and bring him to the A's, we were a little bit more conservative. We didn't hit and run as much. We didn't bunt as much, because the numbers said the bunt is ineffective to creating runs. Although we've kind of gone to a more skilled game now, where the bunting is becoming a little bit more important. We didn't run the bases as aggressively as the Angels. And so, I mean, the game's the same, but the way we played it was a little different. Give an example there. Or you might have a player come in that isn't as restrictive. Organization wasn't as restrictive, which I think the Rangers aren't as restrictive on their pitch counts and their innings limits. Whereas we as the A's, we are restrictive. And I don't mean that to be derogatory. It's to protect the health of the arm. I mean, does it do any good to throw a guy out there 8 or 9 innings and go over his pitch count to win at the minor level, or keep him healthy?
You don't follow Billy Martin anymore?
Yeah, Billy Bob. So we do see that from time to time, but I think in general, everybody's kind of the same way with their own little twist and tweak on the way they teach the game.
How do you integrate new draftees? Because these guys get drafted in June, and then all of a sudden they're on your doorstep and they get assigned, and you got to get them up to speed.
Great question. That's where I come in. Majority of the new draftees will be assigned to my teams, the Vermont Lake Monsters in the New York Penn League. Some players will be assigned to a rookie level team in Arizona. So that would be Eddie, our new manager. And it's basically elementary. It's just baseball 101. It's just baseball 101. Getting them integrated into professional baseball, daily grind. We're playing every day. In college, you might play, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, so you got a couple days off. You're not playing as many games. You're playing with a wood bat. You're playing every day. You got the bus ride. You got different ballparks, different nutrition, different strength and conditioning program. So we have a template that we use, and we keep it simple, nothing complex. A lot of meetings, a lot of one-on-one meetings. I think you get a lot established. You create that rapport, that trust in your initial goal-setting meeting, and you introduce them to the A's way. But we don't throw the whole kitchen sink at them in one meeting. We just kind of, over the course of 2.5 months, slowly introduce information to them. So when they go into the instructional league, they hit the ground running, and now we start to get a little bit more detailed. Now we start to get a little bit more focused and narrow with our fundamentals and our principles. But at my level, it's just the first 30 days of hands-off policy in terms of talking mechanics. So you may see something wrong with the player, whether it's an inefficiency or a deficiency in a swing or in a delivery, pitching delivery, hands off until the coordinators come in, get a chance to see them, talk to them, and then it's hands on after that. So if they come in, by the time they get drafted, go through their physicals, and get to Vermont, it may not be until July 1st or July 5th. And then you have 30 days where, we're teaching the game, base running and stuff, but in terms of mechanics, it's August before we actually start fine-tuning or making tweaks. Because they got there for a reason. They had success in college. It's just a matter of letting them go out and play the game for 30 days, which amounts to be 28 to 30 games, depending on how many off days we have and rainouts. But yeah, great question.
With the Astros winning the World Series and being in the A's division, is there like a year-to-year modification of the overall A's way in terms of like we've got to try and beat these guys and we have to try and combat what they do better in order to be more successful in the division? And how does that, if there is, how does that trickle down to the minors and everything like that?
At the minor league level, that's another good question. At the minor level, we've been pretty consistent with the way we approach the game, the way we teach the game. Although, let's face it, coaching, teaching, leading is about borrowing or stealing ideas from other people. That's just you want to emulate those that have had success before you. And so with the Angels, they've had success going first to third, reading balls to third. So we started to integrate that into our base running program. There's drills you may see when you're going to another complex. They might be doing their drill work, and you look and say, hey, you know what, that's a great drill. Why don't we try that in our camp? Or you instruct based on numbers that we get off of what's called TrackMan. TrackMan basically is a technology that's placed up high on our backstop behind home plate, and it measures all the data once the ball is put in play. So whether it's out of the pitcher's hand or whether it comes off the bat. Exit velo, launch angle, path through the ball. We got video. We have these things now called ZEP, blast motion, and diamond kinetics that go on the bottom of the bat to gauge all those numbers and all those statistics. So you're always trying to find ways to improve. You're always trying to find ways to get better. And you borrow from other organizations.
The Cubs have just added a second Arizona Summer League team down at the bottom level because they didn't have enough, I guess, playing time available for all the entry-level players. Is that a problem, or is it something that Oakland is likely to do?
That second team?
Yeah.
Traditionally, Oakland has been pretty lean
Yeah.
with the numbers they bring into camp for whatever reason. So basically, we'll go and play an extended game or an instructional league game, and other teams will have, or other organizations will have 2 or 3 teams out there. And basically, we have 1.5 to maybe 2. which affords us a little bit more one-on-one small group time. Because you start bringing in an exorbitant amount of players, sometimes they get lost in the shuffle. They don't get an amount of individual work. So I think for the present time, we're probably going to stick with the smaller camp and not bring in a lot of extra players.
Going back to the analytics, in the current systems that you use and know of, do you see any gaps or things that you wish they did better? And where do you see the analytics going from where they are now?
So it's a great question. The analytics, I would say 2, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, were almost non-existent at the minor league level. Slowly but surely, as the major league teams are implementing them there, it's trickling down to us. The analytics that we use are more based on spray charts, exit velos, break X, break Z for pitchers, basically that spin rotation. I think break X is breaking ball and break Z is or right-handed versus left-handed. That would be, I mean, I'm not totally well versed in the analytic numbers. That would be a question that Ed Sprague, who's our coordinator of instruction, he's the liaison between our analytics department at the major league level and then filters down the analytics to the minor league level. But I can certainly get you more information if you're interested in continuing that discussion. I mean, you got to be careful on the paralysis by analysis too. You know, there's a lot of great information out there with the analytics. And we do have analytical meetings where we bring in a group of players and we present the information to them, generally speaking, just to give them an idea, hey, this is how you're being evaluated. These are the numbers. This is your weighted average. This is your BOPIT, your batting average balls in play. This is your, other than just whip. There's a lot of internal numbers that you don't come up on a box score. Batting average, runs, whip for a pitcher, innings pitched, walks per 9 innings. There's a lot of internal numbers that we use that really we can use to help develop these players. But like I said, man, if there's too much information, it's not taught the right way, or they get too wrapped into it, then it creates a little bit of confusion. So we just have to be judicious in how we present the information to them. There's a lot of one-on-one meetings too, and we have specific criteria that we go over to make sure that they understand it.
I just had a question. I know there's a lot of travel, there's a lot of downtime while players are traveling in these leagues. Do you use anything in terms of teaching tools that they could do while they travel? I'm thinking of video games that essentially would be run off of an iPad that essentially teach the cognitive skills that you want, the way to play the game, the decision making, so that they would make more use of that time. Because as you say, you bring people in for a meeting, there's only so much they can absorb in a short time.
Very good question. You'd love to be a fly in that bus some nights, is what goes on there. That's not a conversation for this room or live Facebook, but yes and no to answer your question. That's something that Mark Strickland, our sports psychologist, is presently working on to be a little more proactive in that department to get something that will help improve those cognitive skills of the athlete. All these times, they're on their iPads watching movies, they're FaceTiming with their friends, or they've got a movie on the bus, or they're listening to music. You'd be surprised. There's some players in there reading books on sports psychology or the art of hitting, or some other things that will be benefit, or leadership books that will be beneficial to the way they play the game. I know what we do on more of a statistical level. We started this year. We had our hitting coach. He was the bench coach. He was in charge of defensive shifts. He would take our defensive shifts off our Oasis program and text it or email it to the players. So they would, after a game, say the last game of the series, going in to play the next series, he would either send it out that night or the morning of, so these players can just open their text message or their email and look at the spray charts. So now they're looking at how we're going to defend, how we're going to be aligned defensively against the next opponent. He also does send video. We'll send video not only of the athlete himself hitting, or if it's our pitching coach pitching, but we'll send as much advanced video that we have of our opponents, whether, mostly pitching, from a pitching perspective, arm angle. It's usually from center field, so you get to see arm angle, you get to see slot position, you get to see the movement of the ball. We'll send heat maps out, so basically you have, those 9 little squares and then you have percentages in there, and then it goes from red to light red to like orange, yellow, green and blue to where it's cold. And you'll see pitchers that'll have red, and say if you're a right-handed hitter, he throws a four-seam fastball 62% of the time on an 0-0 count on the outer half of the plate. And then he uses his slider in a 1-2 count or with 2 strikes 72% of the time, and the red is maybe slightly off the plate. So you know he's going to try to get ahead with a fastball middle of the way 67% of the time, whatever it is. And his put-away pitch or his out pitch, whatever X percent of time, is going to be used on 2 strikes. So it kind of gives you an idea in the back of your mind, this is the way he pitches. Now, we're not telling them to go up there and look or guess, because you don't want to be a guess hitter, but at least it gives you a sense of how this guy's going to get you out, or how he's going to pitch you.
Yeah, I just always felt that game playing, which is something that people are raised into, it's part of their culture, and they're very, very competitive. If you could build some of these things into some kind of game so it becomes something that they enjoy doing as well as, they need to do.
For sure. I think that's an
there could
excellent
be some
point.
real nice payoff there.
I mean, guys are always playing games on the bus, soccer or basketball, but there's not anything per se that's directly geared towards the development of baseball skills in that sense. And it may come to that. It may come to that someday.
Can you speak to the change in philosophy of the organizational philosophies of Oakland? It seemed like until recently, the organization was happy with not doing a full rebuild. And it's not like not doing a full rebuild like the Astros. And it's not like that full rebuild theory is new. It's been around a while. The A's did it in the 70s. We did it again with Hudson, Mulder, and Zito. What changed with the philosophy of the team in terms of the way Billy approached things? And because it seemed like we were happy with trading like Rich Hart and getting like a Josh Donaldson. It didn't seem like to them it mattered whether we drafted a player or not. As long as he was in our system and it was an all-star product for us, that was fine. Now it's like the organization is going back to, well, we're not doing a full rebuild, but we're emphasizing the development. What changed there? And Billy has said, well, we never feel we can do a full rebuild because the fans won't stick with us. I don't think that did the fans service, because the fans are pretty smart, whether they're Cub fans or A's fans or Sox fans. They understand a full rebuild is going to take some time. And so what changed in the Oakland? Why did we not do a full rebuild sooner?
Okay, so from my knowledge, I would have to say economics may have something to do with that in terms of, you talk about small market versus large market. I mean, there's money out there to be spent on players, but you notice that the A's never really go after that marquee free agent, the Stantons or the Kershaws or anybody who else is a free agent. So, to the best of my knowledge, the Major League team used their analytics, their algorithms, their mathematics to go out and get players that are undervalued in terms of the market, plug them in the hopes that they would help produce a winning team, which over the last few years we haven't won all that much for whatever reason, injuries, luck, whatever have you. Within the last year or two, I would say, like you just said and I alluded to earlier, I think that it's coming around cycle where we're going to be promoting from within. Our scouting department is phenomenal. And I'm not just saying that to say that. They do an excellent job with the way they go out and observe and evaluate amateur talent and draft them into the organization. So it gives us in player development, it's an easier job when you have players that you can coach. You have players that are and I think the front office is starting to see the value in the players that we have. Instead of developing them over the course of 3 to 4 or 5 years, and then they get to that tradable level where they've built up enough background info, if you will, or at bats or innings pitched or innings played, where we trade them away 2 or 3 in a package deal to get the player that was based on that algorithm of years prior. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now all these talented players like Matt Olson, Matt Chapman, Barreto, Pinder, Bruce Maxwell. There's a few other players that are probably
Sean Murphy.
Sean Murphy from Wright State. Yeah. You're going to start to see these players in the big leagues within the next year or two. I know you've already seen some, but you may see some at State. and you're going to see the second wave come through. There's some tremendous athletes, some tremendous players I worked with this year at the short A level that may go to the high A level next year. So they're going to skip right over Beloit and start Stockton, because the way Billy and David, at least from my perspective, they're aggressive in their promotions. They're aggressive. So if a college player comes in at age 22 or 23, well, 21 or 22, and dominates the league, he's going to move. He's going to move. He has to. He's supposed to. He's supposed to dominate the league. And he's going to matriculate through the system relatively quick, because you want to give him to the big leagues as soon as you can. You're going to go out and invest, let's say $1 million plus, $2 or $3 million on a player. You want to get that investment or return on investment as quick as you can. So they're going to go through the minor league system rather rapidly, whether you're a pitcher or a position player. Not rushed. We still want to give them time to develop. And that's why we bring them into the instructional league. That's why we bring them into a fall league, which is just the level right above the fall instructional league. That's why some of them go out and play winter ball. And so you can garner enough. Off the top of my head, I think it's about 500. So you're looking at 2,000 bats, which is roughly, you're looking at 400, 500, 3 to 4 years of minor league development before they're ready to go into the big leagues. Now, the biggest hurdle for any minor league player is not the physical elements of the game. It's the mental element. It's the mental side. Going from minor league baseball to the major leagues, where now your minimum salary is $520. Where now it's all about the win. Now you're playing in front of 40, 50,000 fans. Now you're going to be on SportsCenter. Now you're going to be written up in the paper. There's a lot of pressures mentally, psychologically on these players. I mean, you'll see them dominate in the minor leagues, certain players. They get their opportunity in the big leagues, and they struggle. Or they succeed so well their first year, they go through what's called a sophomore slump, because now the league is adjusting to them. So now it's that game of cat and mouse. So I know I got a little off topic, but going back to your question is, I think you're going to start seeing more homegrown talent. Not only make it to the big leagues, but stay and stick.
Aaron, did you need to be getting out?
A couple more questions, yeah, maybe 2 or 3 more. Yeah, thanks for I'll be here all day. This is fine.
Yeah, I know.
I want to shoot real quick.
Part A, Part B?
Two distinct ones. The SMART objectives that you had, have you found that incorporating them has actually helped the player improve while they're doing it?
Yes.
In what way?
No, I'll tell you, I'm sorry, I was going to drink water. So it's been proven. It's been proven in research that anytime you come in, it's almost like a vision board. You know, they can see their goals. They can see the blueprint of what they want. And this is not statistical goals. These are more specific goals of, hey, I need to work on my backhand. I need to work on my double play pivot. I need to work on hitting the ball or staying back and driving the ball the other way. We're not talking about goals of, hey, I want to hit 300 or I want to hit 30 home runs. These are more developmental specific goals, where we can now create a blueprint, tailor our early work program or some of our team fundamental to make sure that we're hitting home at all those goals that the player has written. Usually between 3 and 4 goals we have. Maybe a couple on the offensive side, maybe 1 or 2 on the defensive side. We might throw a base running goal in there as well. So now it really narrows the focus of our development for that specific player. Instead of just coming in and saying, hey, we're going to cover everything, no, we're going to cover this. And when we cover it, it's that one thing that we cover. For our early work, 20 to 25 minutes, we're out there for that one thing for 20 to 25 minutes. That's it. And then we'll go out there and do it again until he feels comfortable enough where he feel that he has accomplished that goal. Then we'll come in and revise. And we'll have a goal meeting at the beginning of the season. We'll have a meeting in the middle of the season, and then we'll have one at the end. It's a little tougher at my level because it's only 76 games. And you have 35 on the roster, so by the time you meet with the first guy and you meet with the last guy, it's time to meet with the first guy. You know, like you're all meeting out. We want to overburden them with information, but we certainly do want to provide them with a blueprint to success. And players have bought into that too. They like the one-on-one conversation.
That's what I was going to say. If everybody bought into it when they came down.
More some than others. More some than others. You're not going to get through to everybody, but you'll get through to most everybody by having that.
So you conduct the objective.
It's a staff, so I'll facilitate, but usually I empower my coaches to take it over with the hitting, with the pitching, and with the strength coach. So basically, it's a 4-on-1 meeting. And it's usually done in my office. And we'll just go around the room. Takes 12 to 15 minutes, and we usually do 3 or 4 a day.
I'll send you the second question to email.
No, fire away.
Okay, well, so I saw a couple, one of the pictures you drafted, I think, from Florida State.
Puck?
Yes.
He's been talking lefty?
Yeah, so since he went, so I saw him pitch in the July game, right? And it was rained out. And then the next thing I saw after I left Montreal, he's pitching in Oakland. So do you still stay in contact with him? Or do you see, I mean, does that feed into your way you approach in Vermont to see how?
Yes, the relationship never ends. So once we get players in at whatever level, say Vermont, and we build that initial relationship. That relationship, this is what we talk about, relationships, and so it builds into instructional league.
Yeah.
And yes, we're their coach, we're their leader, we're their mentor, but we're also human beings, man, and it's about relationships. So we want to make sure that we stay tied and plugged in. It's not like we just have them at an assembly line, and then once that part's finished, you never see it again. It gets plugged into the machine. Now, we may not manage or coach them the next year, but every time we see them in an instructional league, a fall league, or spring training, we always make it a point as a staff, as a player development staff, to stay in touch with the athletes we had coached prior or years prior. So I had Puck my first year, he's 2 or 3 years down the road. I'll still have conversations with him. I may not be technical with him in terms of things to do, but always communicating and talking, for sure. For sure, absolutely. It's not just a one and done, man. You want to make sure you maintain and foster that relationship throughout. And that's something I think the Oakland A's do exceptionally well. I'm just saying that because I'm there. But Keith Lippman, my boss, has really built a transformative culture. You know, I'm telling you, man, players come back after they get traded or Rule 5 to another organization. They come back and express their appreciation for the way they were developed in our organization with relationship building. They're not just a number, they're a person. And I think that helps with building trust and buy-in to our way of playing baseball.
Sure.
You're welcome.
Just from a player evaluation standpoint, I know that numbers aren't going to tell the whole story. You're there, you're the eyes on the prize. How long, or are you able to tell this guy's got it or this guy doesn't have it? Obviously, it's going to take some time to get that, but is there some decision point in your own mind you're like, yeah, this guy's told?
So it's a great question. There's old school versus new school. So you have the say subjectivity of the eyes, then you have the objectivity of the numbers, and you know it's the teeter-totter. So the numbers are a little bit more important now than what we see with our eyes, especially with the way the analytics are going, with more of the internal numbers that aren't necessarily represented on a box score, or that, you know, you go to Fangraphs. I mean, Fangraphs is a good, Fangraphs is a good, kind of gives you a general idea of the way analytics are going and all these equations, algorithms, and numbers in terms of the way players are being evaluated. But you can never disregard the importance of the eye test. For those of us that are in the trenches with the players on a day-to-day basis. So we see these players, 300 at bats with our eyes, whether it's our player or somebody else. Whereas we don't just see them on a number sheet. And so even though they're a great player, the numbers may not be indicative of the way they're truly playing. And that's why they're getting a little bit more specific with the internal numbers, because that'll give a better indication of really how his performance is on the field. And then of course all the intangibles, like, is he on time? Does he have a good attitude? How's he interacting with his teammates? You can't really quantify that yet. Clubhouse dynamics, we call it. Quantify clubhouse dynamics. You have analytics for the way you do stuff on the field, but what about the dynamics of the clubhouse in terms of how relative it is to the importance of winning on the field?
I've managed at the Little League and Babe Ruth levels, so I think we're very similar in terms of, I'm just kidding.
I'm going to put a good word in for you. It's a solid resume.
I'm just saying that there's been kids, and I'm talking about from 7 to 8 years old to my oldest is 16 now. And you're like, yeah, that guy's got it, but that guy doesn't. Are you making that?
No doubt. Now, talent is never enough. You know, you might have a talented player, maybe he throws off the bump, his velo or his velocity is 96. Or maybe, you know, he's the exit velo at 95. Or maybe he can run, he's a 7 runner, which means he's one of the fastest in the league. Just because you have those tools doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make it to the big leagues. You know, talent-wise, you're ahead of the game, but the other intangibles come into play. Your attitude, your work ethic, you know, all those little things that we talk about on a daily basis for those of us that have coached at whatever level. It's not all about the talent. I've seen many talented players come through in my early systems over the years that have fallen by the wayside because they just don't have the inner drive, the intrinsic motivation to really get to the next level. And then you take a marginal player that has, you know, average talent across the board, who excels in the intangibles, who will make it to the big leagues, just based on this guy's grit and his tenacity and the way he gets after it on a daily basis, gets the most out of his God-given ability. I can name 2 players off the top of my head at both ends of the spectrum. I won't name any names, but we had a player 2 years ago, 7 arm, 7 runner, maybe 5 pop, beautiful swing, but didn't really have it here or here. And then we had this other player come in this year, who was maybe average across the board, but he was one of our best players, best hitters, best defenders. Actually won our Gold Glove Award this year. You never would have guessed it from where he was at the beginning of the season to where he ended, because he always wanted the extra work. He was inquisitive. He always asked the right questions. You know, a little annoying at times because he asks so many questions, but I'd rather have a player like that than somebody who doesn't ask any questions at all. So talent, well, you know, you can tell, you go across the field, oh, this guy's got some talent. But then you go and talk to the manager or other scouts and they say, yeah, he's talented, but. Or the best of both worlds is obviously, yeah, he's got talent and he's got the mindset. And now you're looking at a special player. Now you're looking at a special player. We'll go 2 more questions and we'll wrap it up. I'll just send my speeding ticket to you. Who hasn't asked one yet?
I haven't.
Oh, we'll go ahead and
Mine's quick.
do a quick answer then.
Okay. You mentioned earlier about how many, you know, like at some of the instructional league level, you got a lot of like Dominican players,
Yes.
foreign players. Do you do any like language training or organized language training for new players who don't have English, or is it just kind of, are they on their own?
No, we do. That's a great question. Not only language training, but cultural immersion too. We've been really proactive, I'd say the last 2 years. Dan Feinstein, who's one of our assistant general managers, that's his department, and he has done a fantastic job. Dan. Of creating, of being very proactive in that department. Not only language training. This year in Vermont was the first year that players were required to go to English class at the university. So Burlington, Vermont, the University of Vermont is right there. I mean, here's the field, and then we're on campus. We're on the east side of campus, and then they went to a class literally like a stone's throw away from the ballpark, where they would go to class for an hour with the teacher. They would go through their English class. They would go have lunch at the campus kitchen, which is the local